What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So, as you know, we completed our Dexter Original Sin full series week by week summary, review, breakdown, scoring, ranking, whatever you want to throw at it. We completed that this past weekend, and now we are on to another show. Now, this show was on my list of ones to check out. However, because I was doing Dexter Original Sin, I didn't have necessarily enough time to jump over and do this one, plus do various other movie reviews I've been wanting to do. So now that Dexter Original Sin is over, we are fully caught up on this series called Newtopia. Now, currently there are only 3 episodes out. There were 2 episodes that dropped on February 7th, and the latest episode, which is episode 3, dropped just 4 days ago on Valentine's Day. So these do come out every Friday. It is an Amazon Prime series, so if you have Amazon Prime, you can check it out there. There will be a total of 8 episodes, and from what I can tell of the schedule, there will not be a break. So I know sometimes we get 4 or 5 episodes in, a week is then taken off, and then we finish out the series. So that's not happening here. This series will drop every Friday. An episode will drop every Friday through March 21st, which is when episode 8 will drop, which is the final episode. Now, whether or not this is going to be a one and done season, whether or not this is going to be like a one and done series, or they're going to do a second season, I have no idea. I have only read and heard about this first initial season of this K-drama. So hopefully, though, based on what I've seen thus far, just 3 episodes in, I'm hoping that they do leave it open for a second season. Although I think it could be tough. I think once we start getting into some of the spoilers, you could understand why I think it might be tough, and where it could fall in the trap, the same trap that many other TV series that deal with the same content or subject matter have fallen into. So for this summary and review, we are actually looking at episodes 1 and 2 together. The reason we're doing that is because episode 1, I don't want to jump right into it, but we're doing it together for a reason, and I'll explain why. Then episode 3 we will do in a separate video, and we'll drop that one soon after this video. And then going forward, as we were doing with Dexter Original Sin, we'll do a weekly, every weekend drop, usually probably around Saturday or Sunday, just to allow for a couple days to allow anyone who wants to check this show out, check it out. I do think this will be a show, though, that either you like K-dramas and you're going to love the concept and the way they're telling this particular story, or you're going to be completely checked out. It's not going to interest you, and you're going to move on. So I'm not too worried about giving away too many spoilers on a weekly basis because of that fact. So getting into this, episodes 1 and 2. I'm doing these together for a very particular reason. One, because episode 1 is a lot of slow burn. It's about 58 minutes, and it is a slow burn for 54 minutes. You're wondering, where is this going to go? It does a lot of story building, a lot of jumping from various characters, really to introduce you to all the characters involved, whether or not they're going to live or die, which you don't know who is going to live or die as this show continues. I mean, you have a good idea as far as like who the 2 main characters are, and odds are they're not going to die by the end of this show or this season. However, they still do take the time to introduce you to all the various other, I guess, supporting characters, and rightfully so. Each one does eventually serve a part in the first 3 episodes. But again, we'll cover off on those as we get there. But episode 1 is a huge slow burn, but where it does pick up right at the end, and then once it picks up, it just continues and you're right into episode 2. And it's just constant. It doesn't really let up. I mean, it lets up a little bit to allow you to take a moment, take it in what you've just saw, but then it ramps itself right back up again. So I'm going to do my best to pronounce some of these names. So I do apologize. If I don't pronounce them correctly, it's not in any way meant to offend if I mispronounce any of the words or any of the actors or actresses' names. Again, it's just my lack of knowing how to pronounce them. So again, this is called Newtopia, based on it is a K-drama. It's being deemed as a romantic drama zombie horror film, or not horror film, but horror series, sorry. And thus far, 3 episodes in, it lives up to that. But since we're focusing on episodes 1 and 2, it still lives up to it. Now, I will say the one thing going right into episode 1 I wasn't expecting, especially with something like this, I was expecting subtitles, and you don't get subtitles. You get an English dub over, which at first I found very, very distracting, and almost within a few minutes was going to completely turn it off because it was that distracting to me. I much rather have just heard it in the native tongue and read subtitles, to be honest, versus listening to an English dub over. However, once you can get past that and start focusing on just the show itself and the story, it tends to just fall into the background. Even though it's still very noticeable, it does tend to fall into the background. So I just wanted to point that out. I know many people are not big on subtitled TV series or films, especially when it comes to horror. You can tell this one was originally done in its native tongue, but they do an English dub over. Now this story, or thus far the story, is following 2 individuals. The 2 individuals as you see here on the screen. One of them being Lee Ja-eun, and he's a late bloomer in life across the board. He is in his mid-20s. As you can see, he is dressed in military garb, so he is in the military, but he's still a trainee. He is one of 2 of the oldest trainees in his group in the military still. Everyone else is around 8 to 10 years younger than he is, and you can tell that he doesn't really take his life. He hasn't been taking his life too seriously. Now, his girlfriend, who is Kang Eun-ju, so as she's the one here in the picture as well, she is, she has a stable job, she has friends, but he is off in the military for at least another year and a half, and he's a very paranoid individual. He's constantly calling her, constantly checking up on her, and while you can tell in a way it bothers her, and you can tell her friends give her a hard time about it, but then the same breath, you can see how she doesn't find it to be too bothering, because we do get some flashbacks as we're following their story. We get flashbacks of their relationship, on how they met and how close they were, how loving they were to each other. So it appears this disconnect has happened since he's decided, or since he's joined the military, and he still has some time left, and he feels like she's kind of moving on with her life, and he is not. He's just still kind of stuck, but knowing he can't do anything about it until his time in the military has been complete. So we do this kind of back and forth between his story and her story in this first episode. Now, keeping in mind where he's not stationed, he's stationed within the same city, overall city. And the way it's interesting how the premise is being set up. It's only him and probably 8 other soldiers in his unit, plus his commanding officers. So there's a total of maybe 10 of them. And their sole responsibility is to sit on the highest point within the city, on this building, which happens to be this very ritzy, very popular, posh hotel. And they are not allowed to mingle with the guests, with the employees, nothing. They are to, use back corridors, back stairwells. They have a special elevator for themselves. And again, they have to protect the airspace. That's their job, is to sit at the highest point, protect any airspace for the city. So they have some appropriate military armory up there to help them do so. Again, we're jumping back and forth between his story and her story. And her story really isn't the focus here in this first episode as it is in the second episode. And the reason we see a shift there is because they get to a point in the first episode, or I believe early on in the second, where they realize, you know what, we should just break up, we shouldn't be together anymore. And you can see it's very distraughting for them both. That's not really what either one of them wanted, but it's almost as if they were trying to play a game of chicken, and both blinked and both reacted. So once this all starts to happen, and they are having to now walk through the hotel, they're having to walk through these floors because their elevator is broke, they look over and see an airliner jet passenger plane flying towards the tower. And this, depending upon your sensitivity to the content, there is a plane that does go down. They don't show anything as far as anything graphic as far as that, but they do depict an airliner plane going down in the middle of the city. Now, this is where the story then starts to pick up from this point forward. At the end of episode 1 into 2, where this happens, it's almost like it sets off a chain of events. And you don't know if this is what's causing this whole zombie rage virus breakout, but I don't believe it is, because while she is now trying to get to this hotel where she knows he is stationed, one of her friends is giving her a ride, and he wants to be more than friends. He wants to be the new boyfriend, so he keeps trying to undermine. He keeps trying to undermine Lee as far as, oh, I'll always be here for you, if you need anyone to talk to. So he's trying to play that suave type role to get her to ignore the boyfriend and go on with him. So he's giving her a ride to the hotel, and all of a sudden someone just jumps right through the windshield. And I don't know so much jumps as they do get hit, but then as they're in the windshield, of course, they're both freaking out. Traffic's piling up behind them. And within a matter of, I'd say, 10 minutes of the story going back and forth, this individual turns into a zombie. And then it seems like many other zombies start showing up out of nowhere. And that leads us right at the end of episode 1, bringing us into 2, which episode 2 is pretty non-stop. But in episode 2, we do focus on a couple of other primary characters, one by the name of Aaron Park. So Aaron Park is one of the chief hotel managers, and when you see him, he's known to be very feared by all those in the military that are in this building, which is kind of odd because you would think it'd be the other way around. But he carries himself in a way where it's almost as if there's this urban legend about him and what he can and can't do, and he very much carries himself that way. So episode 2 does take some time to focus on Aaron Park and another employee there as well, who she becomes, her name is Usu Zhang. So she becomes an integral part of the group with the military. She survives, ends up being protected by them, and goes up to the rooftop floors where their station or where their bunks are at, and is really just now staying with them because all the other floors in the hotel have now just been overrun by zombies. So again, in episode 2, we're kind of going this back and forth where we're learning about new characters who are now all trying to survive, get back to the top floor where they know, again, the military occupies that top piece. While at the same time, we're following now the girlfriend and a famous actor, a famous entertainer who just happens to be out amongst the public somehow, some way. There's no rhyme or reason as to why he's out and about. But for whatever reason, these two cross paths, and now they are on a mission to get to this hotel so she can get to her boyfriend. But they keep coming across various obstacles, as they would as the city is now becoming overrun by zombies. And it follows very much the zombie, kind of formula. You don't want to make loud noises. If you get bit, you're going to turn, and it depends on how fast you turn. You gotta, shoot them in the head or sever the brain in order to take them down. So very much we get the traditional zombie formula there. However, if you take that formula and again add the K-drama to it, add a lot of whimsical comedy to this, it's very, very enjoyable. And I think once you get past episode 1, it immediately hooks you. And when the outbreak or the zombies started appearing towards the end of episode 1 into episode 2, and everyone now again is we're following different pockets of 2 military here, 2 military guys here, the 2 employees, and again we're all trying to get to one point of the hotel, which is the top. The comedy that's inserted in here, you can't help but laugh at it because it's not so much, it's making fun of itself in a way, but still making fun of the fact of that they're just trying to survive, of the fact that this is also a K-drama, which adds a little bit more humor to it, because I don't want to call it dry humor, but just some of the jokes that they're bouncing off of each other do make complete sense, as you would be thinking that's something you would say to your friend or someone that was with you if you were experiencing the same thing, and you would do some of these same exact actions. Now, some of the CGI work, some of the, whether it was all CGI or there was any practical effects, some of that is a little touch and go here and there. But considering this is an Amazon Prime show, considering it's 8 episodes, and once you first start the first episode and you start seeing all these, I don't know how to describe it, when they start showing the romantic relationship between these two, and like the running on the bridge and the hearts floating in the air, almost like what you would think you would see in Deadpool. As far as we would see like the cartoon aspect show up, you get a little bit of that here in the beginning. So again, it's leaning into itself. It's not taking itself as a very serious zombie horror film, or sorry, horror TV series, but it is very much that, with the bit of the romantic aspect of these two trying to find each other and reunite and get back together. So again, that's the breakdown for episodes 1 and 2. Again, episode 1 is literally 98% backstory. We're just setting the tone. You know, this is the hotel. This is, you know, we have these military people here. We have her who has a job. I mean, it's very much just laying groundwork, foundational information. It's not until episode 2 we start to get into the survival aspect. We start to get into being introduced to some of the other soldiers, as well as 2 of the employees. And there is a chef here as well that shows up, but he does show up in episode 1, but we see him as a more, I want to say, predominant part in episode 3 when they do find him, but we'll cover off on that in the episode 3 video. Overall, I'd say I'm hooked. I'd get out of 5. I'm giving this already a 4.5. I would highly recommend this show to anyone who's into this genre, whether it's K-drama, whether it's the zombie horror films or zombie TV series. Now, when I was going with it earlier, as far as this could be a one and done series, is I could see this maybe being 8 episodes and that's it. Otherwise, I don't see how you carry this on without falling into the trap of The Walking Dead. Meaning, I feel like The Walking Dead went on for way too long, and I think many people, after a few seasons, maybe 4 or 5, completely lost interest in that show, and a lot of the fan base fell away because it just felt like you were watching the same thing every single season. And it never really, even for me, I think I stopped watching it like around season 6. And I no matter how many times I've tried going back and watching The Walking Dead, I can never get past season 6. I can never get past on to finish out and see how it ends. I mean, I've seen clips here and there of what happens later on, but even now I have no interest in going back because it just doesn't do anything. This, on the other hand, though, I think if they just did the 8 episodes, they could close out the romantic aspect story. I think that would be, this would be a great 8 episode series run. Now, one thing they do have to answer at some point that they do bring up in episode 2 is, how did this start? Again, we are in Korea, so we're in the city of Seoul. So one of the characters, his name is Alex. He mentions, well, it's happening here, and he goes, word is that it's already happening in Europe and in the U.S. It's running rampant there. But they don't really have any explanation as to what started this, where did it start, and how widespread it is outside of that one statement that's made. And it's really then glossed over. They don't really come back to it. They don't readdress it. They don't talk about it anymore. So I'm not sure if they're going to somehow explain that later on, or if this truly will just focus on survival and these two somehow reuniting and finding each other before the 8 episodes is over. So that's going to do it for episodes 1 and 2. Quick review. Like I said, I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. I'm hooked. I'll definitely be checking this out every week. Like I said, we will be doing our episode 3 summary video here shortly, so be on the lookout for that. Again, you can find this on Amazon Prime every Friday between now and I think I said March 21st is when they'll air the 8th and last episode. So let us know down in the comments section if you've heard of this show, if you've started watching, if you haven't, if you think you're going to maybe check it out. Let us know down in the comments section. Also, if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Again, we are getting very close to 500 subscribers to the channel, so every little bit helps. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next one. Peace.